Well, so I decided, rather arbitrarily I might add, that everything that happens on Lake Osborne can be divided into 3 easy categories. And in this episode, I'm going to break it down into the good, the bad, and the unnecessary. And the weird. Because there's weird things. That's 4 categories. Good morning, canoe tubers, and welcome back to Lake Log. If you've been watching Lake Log, you know that you can expect the unexpected. And if you're new to Lake Log, well, Lake Log is a place where an old guy in a canoe paddles around and records bird life with a camera in a lake in the middle of Palm Beach County, Florida, and yada, yada, yada. If you're not into that kind of thing, well, there's tons of videos of girls in bikinis spearfishing. Not that I've seen any of them, but I know they're there. Well, I'm going to have to interrupt this episode just for a second because I have to mention that when I launched my canoe this morning, I couldn't help but notice that someone had thrown a set of tires into the lake just a few yards offshore. Yes, I know. Tires naturally dissolve after a few days, and so what's the harm? Well, the truth is, I know that also you didn't have the money to pay the little disposal fee for the tires at the landfill because you have to buy a new set of tires for your custom car that is actually louder than it is fast. Hey, nice. Really nice work. If you're going to go through life as an ignorant, uneducated, uncool, poopy face, you're ding-dong. And you know why I'm upset about this? Is because I'm going to haul the tires out myself. You know why? Because there's not a secret pink army of rude elves that runs around in the morning before the sun comes up and picks up your punchline. You and anybody else that does this kind of stuff doesn't deserve to use the lake, see the lake, or even glue stick near the lake. Underwear picker. Well, so after my paddle that day, I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I took the tires out of the lake, rolled them up the hill, and parked them by the side of the road. And gosh golly, wouldn't you know it, but somebody came by and picked them up. So easy. Now that that's out of the way, let's get back to the 3 categories and this beautiful lake. Much more pleasant, don't you think? If you've been watching Lake Log, then you know why I do this. Is it because I'm a goody-goody who just can't stand to see the trash in the environment? Well, the answer to that is yes. But there's another reason. I've explained before. If I get some good video of some bird doing something really amazing, and there's a piece of plastic trash somewhere in that shot, well, that just makes me madder than a hornet. So I'd rather not see it. And if coming out here every once in a while and picking up some trash is the price I pay for having a clean shot, then that's what I'm going to do. I consider it to be the price of admission. Taking trash out of the lake is a big part of the lake log story. You know, call me old-fashioned, but I just can't paddle past something and pretend to not see it or think that someone else is going to pick it up. That just doesn't work with me, and that's not the way I was raised. Let me put this into perspective. This is a plastic pasta fork, and I didn't find it in a lake. I actually own this. So I took it out of my drawer this morning and brought it out here with me to make a point. Plastic is part of our lives. It's not going away. It's not going to change. We're not going to de-plastic ourselves. But single-use plastics are the big problem. Well, Dean, that fork is made out of plastic. You know, you're talking about plastic. Yeah. I bought this plastic pasta fork in 1986 in a grocery store in Fresno, California, while on a camping trip. I've had this plastic fork in my utensil drawer, and my family uses it since then. It's not considered single-use plastic. This is multi-use plastic. It's still as flexible and as perfect as the day I bought it, over 30 years ago. And my point is this: single-use plastics are the biggest scourge on the planet and on this lake. Use it once, toss it aside. Where does it go? It doesn't go anywhere. It stays there. And I'm going to make another point. And I'm going to tell you a little story. And I'm also going to caution you, because the video you're about to see is really hard to watch. Last year when I was shooting my heron series, I had an afternoon that was kind of rainy, and I thought it would be kind of interesting to record the herons in the rain. So I went over to the lake with an umbrella and set up and decided to try to shoot some video. What I noticed down below them was an odd sight. A limpkin kind of standing in one spot, not really moving a lot. When I zoomed in on this limpkin with my camera, what I saw was shocking and saddening. Somehow a plastic ring had gotten around the limpkin's neck and in between its beak, so it could not close its mouth. It could also not get the ring off because its beak is too long. I put my camera away, went and got my daughter, and went back out to try to rescue the limpkin. And no, I did not record this. That was not part of my priority. We spent hours trying to catch this limpkin, and that was difficult because the limpkin could still fly and would just fly off to another spot as soon as we got close. A passing neighbor, and she knows who she is, called and tried to get some help from a wildlife care center while we tried to catch this limpkin. No one came, and we were not successful. The next day, the limpkin was pretty much in the same spot. I tried again, this time with my canoe, and what I thought would be a good idea, a big beach towel to throw over it and try to catch it. As soon as I got close, it flew away. The saddest part about this is that the entire limpkin family, its mate and its limpkin offspring, were right nearby. And they stayed with this limpkin for a long time. A couple of days went by and I saw the limpkin standing in the water by itself. They don't do that. I am almost certain that that limpkin died, either by starvation or predation from something else. And that's very sad. That plastic ring of whatever it was, from whatever it was, in the lake for however long it was the cause of that limpkin's death. And it was a slow and painful one, more than likely. I think it perfectly illustrates what happens when we assume that the objects we use and discard just take care of themselves. The tires in the lake, the pieces of plastic, the things we get rid of. They don't really go away. And that's something we all need to be aware of. After all, it's landfill, not lake fill, right? Every spring since I've lived on the edge of Lake Osborne, I've noticed a similar pattern. County workers will come by and spray a chemical defoliant on the lily pads. Now there's good and bad to this. On the one hand, lily pads and other lake vegetation, if left unchecked, can completely choke off the lake, making it almost impossible to drive a boat through it. It also leads to what is known as lake secession. Now, Florida lakes are really shallow, and lake secession is really just the natural death of a lake over time. What happens is the bank vegetation grows into the lake to the point where it completely engulfs it, and eventually the lake becomes a non-lake. On the bad side is, well, the obvious. They're using a chemical defoliant. I'm not a chemist, and I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a botanist. I'm not a lot of things, but I do know this. There has to be some kind of impact on the bird life in this lake. And I wonder if this is just adding to the decline of the bird life in the effort to save the lake itself, or to make it more pleasant looking, or to make it more navigable for boats. These are hard questions. And so I'm going to put the defoliant in the category of good and bad. The other thing that happens in the springtime is the county will come by and it will clear the banks of extra grass or vegetation that is kind of growing up along the shoreline. Now, this is primarily to make it a little safer for people, because in the springtime, that's when alligators are mating and they look for grassy areas along the shoreline to build their nests. You don't want somebody visiting the lake with their kid to do a little fishing to be attacked by an alligator. Can you imagine the lawsuits? So it's a good thing, but at the same time, it's not. Because every time they mow the grass and trim it down to make it look like a golf course, it's at the expense of the birds that nest along the shoreline. So the impact on them is pretty extreme. Clearing the grass and the vegetation along the shoreline also goes into the good and bad category. But these are the compromises for having an urban lake, right? If we were in a natural setting, none of these things would happen at all. Well, if you've been watching Lake Log, you know that I come to this section a lot. To my right here, this is Bird Island. And Bird Island, at one point, was completely overtaken by non-native trees. Australian pine trees, very, very thick, and it was actually connected to John Prince Park by a small land strip. It was a really overgrown, kind of nasty-looking place. The county came along, took out all the non-native vegetation, and cut a channel around the island to make it so that people couldn't get to it. I'm sure it's probably a hangout for all kinds of activity. What they did is they made a natural place where birds could thrive. And it's one of my favorite places. The bird life here is amazing, especially in the early spring. So that's a good thing, right? The Bird Island restoration was part of a bigger project of demucking the lake and returning it to a more natural state. One of the other parts of the lake that was part of that project was Square Lake, which is right next to Bird Island. Square Lake, when I first moved here in the late 90s, was the color of a cup of coffee with cream in it. And it was really shallow and really kind of muddy. I remember paddling through it and thinking, this is really not very pleasant at all. Now, Square Lake is a popular fishing spot. The water is as clear as it's going to be. And the fish and bird life are a positive result of that part of the project. So I'm going to put county efforts in the good category when it comes to restoration of this lake and its maintenance. One morning last year, I was out early with the sunrise, and the light was just gorgeous. And I paddled up and saw a great blue heron hunting in the shallows. There was also a bass fisherman nearby, and I tried very hard to be quiet and to give him lots of space. I trained my camera on the heron. I was expecting that this would be the shot where I capture it spearing a fish in this spectacular morning light. That's not what happened. While I was focusing on my camera, the bass boat slid around behind me quietly, and just out of frame, the bass fisherman started to cast his topwater lure at the heron to see if he could get it to chase it. I don't know if he was trying to give me a better shot, do me a favor, or if he was just being a dingleberry. But can you imagine foul hooking a great blue heron? 4-foot tall bird, 6-foot wingspan, razor sharp beak. I don't think it would have been happy. But that didn't matter to the fisherman. He would just cut the line, drive off, go set up another lure, and fish somewhere else, right? Leaving the heron to walk around with a fish hook or line wrapped around its neck or its beak or something like that. So, I don't know. What you thought was kind of an innocent thing, not innocent at all. It was a bit move. And I do have this boat on video, and I'm not going to show you what it looks like because I don't subscribe to that. But the guy in the boat kind of looked like this.
Is that a fish? I can't tell out of my glasses.
John Prince Park and Lake Osborne are part of the county park system and are funded largely by taxpayers. If you are a tax-paying citizen, that means the lake and the park belong to you. But they don't. They're not yours. They're yours to share, and share responsibly. If you think about it, you only protect what you love, and you only love what you understand. And the point of Lake Log is to help you love and understand this natural area. So enjoy the lake responsibly. Think about your lasting impact. And above all, please, don't be a booger head. And lastly, this one from the weird file. I've seen this a couple of times in the lake now, and I don't know what to think of it. One time, while picking up trash, I found a plastic storage jar with a stuffed animal in it. I put it in the trash bag and moved on. I mean, kids do funny things, right? But then I found it again. This time, a large plastic jar, sealed, with a baby doll inside, upside down, submerged in what seemed to be pickle juice. Is this some kind of fertility voodoo? You throw it in the lake and maybe it saves your baby, or maybe it gets rid of your baby. Maybe it's a hex on somebody else who has a baby. It creeped me out completely, and I sincerely hope that if I see this again, that it's still just a baby doll inside and not an actual baby, right? Okay, here's one more from the weird file, and I apologize, I don't really have a sample of this, but when I'm picking up trash, I find these little tiny plastic bags. You know, they're only about this big, and I still don't get it because I find them all the time, and I mean, what's the point? It's the dumbest food storage idea I've ever heard of. You could get like 5 Skittles in one. Maybe. If you know what those are for, leave a comment below and fill me in, because I don't get it. You couldn't even make a sandwich that small. I think it's important to recognize that this lake has been here a lot longer than we have. Local historian Bill Arnold writes that the Native Americans that named this lake called it Metalcoasca, which loosely translates to "thank you for the shining spirit freshwater lake that is there." I like that. The original Native American name has a thank you built right into it. And if only we could carry that over to modern times, the lake would be a lot better off. Inconsiderate. Last spoon of ice cream leaving. Breakfast skipping. Orangutan. Like I said, stop sign running. Paper clip. Bug face.